Mech Minutes! Hello everybody, and welcome back to Mech Minutes, your #1 source for Battletech painting and lore wrapped up in one seamless package. About 3 months ago, I received one lovely comment for someone asking for this Blood-Asp Omni-Mech to be painted up in specific. And well, I would have been happy to oblige, but unfortunately, the primer that I used on it turned out chunky and garbage. And I'm in the process of stripping the paint now, but to be honest, I just kind of forgot about it for like 3 months, so that's why it took so long. But I'm hoping to get it painted up in the next one, but I'm making this intro specifically so if that person is still watching the channel, well, it's on its way, buddy. But for now, it'll just be a standard mercenaries box. Let's get into that, shall we? Alright, what we got here today is one of Battletech's classic gunhead designs, similar to the Hunchback, Shadowhawk, and Legionnaire My Beloved. This one is known as the Starslayer, and it is a late starleague replacement for the Crab, meant to be the standard medium mech for the SLDF that the Lyran Commonwealth kind of, stole most of. Anyway, moving on to standard hobby procedures, I'm going to be using the same primer that chunked up on the Blood-Asp, and hope that it works this time. I left it on top of my furnace to warm up a bit, and hope that helped, but it seemed to go on pretty good. For this Starslayer, I'm thinking of painting him up a cool Arctic camo type scheme, so to get started with that, I gave him a base coat of a blue-gray. Painting aside, what is the story of this here mech? Well, the Starslayer was actually designed as a replacement for the Crab as the SLDF's new medium mech of choice. While the Crab was a great mech, Kosara weaponries just could not deliver enough units to satiate the SLDF, and so, after they opened up the contract, Blueshot with their innovative new Starslayer ended up winning out. Although somewhat ironically, Blueshot also suffered from major production issues, and they couldn't start producing these in any significant numbers until 13 years after they were awarded the contract. And even then, Archon Robert Steiner II was fostering some miscommunications between the SLDF and Blueshot, causing most of these units to be delivered specifically to House Steiner rather than distributed evenly. However, with rising pressures from the Amara Civil War, as well as the SLDF activating several penalty clauses for failure to deliver, this mech was finally delivered to the rest of the forces equally. An interesting consequence of Steiner's meddling, however, is that many of these Starslayers were left in House Steiner's possession even after General Kerensky and the rest of the SLDF's exodus from the Inner Sphere. Small side note back into Painting Town before we get onto the technical specs, the astute among you might realize that I'm painting up this Starslayer very similarly to how I painted up the Oscout from the last Mech Minute. And well, that is no accident. I would very much like to have a full lance of fun Tundra camo mechs. And well, I've decided to make this Starslayer the command mech of this Recon Lance. But in order to sell that effect, I've decided to paint up some details with a fun commanding orange. Like many mechs in the Succession Wars, the STY-2C Starslayer goes out of production sometime in the first. However, this is not the end for this renowned and popular Lyran design, for in 3050, Blueshot unveils their new Starslayer variant, the STY-3C. The only major changes from the 2C is that the 3C mounts an endosteel internal structure, which frees up enough weight to pack even more armor than the original Crab did. Furthermore, the 3C utilizes an interesting targeting system, a fire scan, which is primarily used for LRM and SRM carriers. It had to undergo several modifications with upgraded computer modules in order to compensate for the Starslayer's primarily laser-based arsenal. Finally, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this mech's specifications. So it is a 50-ton medium mech with a Thor 4 endosteel internal structure. It has a Magna 250 rated fusion engine, which gives it a cruising speed of 54 km per hour and a maximum speed of 86 km per hour. What really sets it apart from its predecessor, the Crab, is its jump capabilities, however. It packs a set of Odin's own Model 34Z jump jets, which gives it a jump range of 150 meters. It packs 9.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor with case around the SRM-4 ammo. As for its armament, it has 2 large lasers, 2 medium lasers, 1 SRM-4, obviously, and 1 small laser. Its communication system is a text battlecom, and its targeting and tracking is fire scan with indirect track, as I mentioned earlier, and it is primarily produced by Blueshot Weapons on Loxley. The Starslayer is a very good and efficient medium mech design, featuring good speed, good armor, and the jump jet capabilities make it ideal for getting behind enemy lines to raid. As far as the weapons loadout goes, it is very balanced between armor penetration and crit seeking, with the large lasers and medium lasers to blow open armor and the SRM-4 to score critical hits on the weak spots. The rear-facing head-mounted small laser is kind of an odd choice, however, though I guess if you need to immolate some pigeons shitting all over your back, it's got its use cases. As far as survivability and sustain goes, the Starslayer scores top marks. Featuring a good amount of armor as well as case, this makes this thing pretty survivable in and of itself. But due to its weapons loadout being spread pretty evenly across the mech, this thing will have to take quite the thrashing before it's completely neutralized as a threat. And given this thing's speed, that's quite the tall order for enemy pilots. The only potential downside I could see is that the Starslayer does kinda have a short range. The large lasers cap out at a long range of 10 to 15 hexes, but thankfully there are variants to combat this. The most common of these variants is the STY-3D, which features an extended range PPC as its primary upgrade. A more detailed list of changes is that it trades one large laser and the SRM-4 for this ERPPC, and to combat the high heat of this weapon, it adds an additional double heatsink, bringing the total up to 12. Furthermore, it upgrades the Pigeon Obliterator 9000 to a BM3 medium laser, meaning that this mech will have a chance against the Canadian geese landing on its back now. An interesting side grade of the STY-3D is the 3DR. Similar to the 3D, this mounts a PPC variant, but this time it goes with a heavy PPC, which is a much heavier and unwieldy variant that required the armor to be swapped out for light ferrofibrous to combat this. Further adding to this mech's weight increase is its use of triple strength Myomer. Triple strength Myomer is much bulkier and more expensive than normal Myomer, but basically once it reaches a certain heat threshold, it will greatly increase the speed, the physical damage that a mech can induce, as well as the lifting capacity, turning this Starslayer variant into an absolute beast of a one-armed boxer. Because it needs to reach a certain heat threshold, the use of a heavy PPC was smart, as this weapon generates a huge amount of heat. The only other addition to this mech is a Guardian ECM suite to disrupt nearby enemy C3 units, which when taken all together, these upgrades make this variant of the Starslayer a very potent close-range skirmisher. The STY-2C is the early Succession Wars / late Starleague version of the Starslayer. It is functionally identical to the 3C, except that it packs less armor due to not having an endosteel internal structure, and all the lasers were manufactured in-house by Blueshot. The STY-2C-EC is the early clan upgrade of the Starslayer. Basically, it is the exact same as the STY-2C, except that all the lasers and all the weapons have been replaced with clan variants. The small and medium lasers have been replaced with their extended range counterparts, and the large lasers have been replaced with improved large lasers. Furthermore, the SRM-4 has been replaced with a Streak SRM-4, and this was all done by Clan Novacat shortly after the exodus and the formation of the clans. The final variant we have to talk about is the STY-4C. The STY-4C was built by Defiance Industries in conglomeration with Clan C Fox. Clan C Fox provided clan-grade weaponry, and the Starslayer's original chassis was upgraded with triple-strength Myomer. The small and medium lasers have been replaced with their clan extended range variants, the SRM-4 have been replaced with a clan grade version, and the large lasers have been replaced with improved heavy large lasers. Now this weaponry is truly staggering, but the large lasers are extremely heat taxing. This does help with the triple strength Myomer, but it is more than the 13 double heat sinks can handle. To combat this, a coolant pod is added, which is essentially a tank of compressed freon gas that can flood the cooling system to boost its efficiency for a limited time. However, this comes with the extra vulnerability of explosion should the tank ever be pierced. Overall, this variant is an interesting yet flawed side grade. Anyway, that is all she wrote. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I know I did. I think I have myself a new favorite mech. This Starslayer is actually really cool, and learning about it while making this video has only really made me love it more. The history and the specs have really made it sound like a solid piece of machinery. Anyway, I hope to see you next week when I finally paint up that blood ass, should the paint actually decide to strip, but either way, that'll be a fun mech next week for sure, so make sure you stay tuned for that. There will be more projects coming along, but that will all be explained in my year-end roundup video that I hope to release soon, hopefully tomorrow on Christmas, but if not, it'll be a little bit later. Anyway, I wish you all happy holidays and a good new year, and I'll see you next week. Bye!